Hey there, this is gonna be a complicated video to make. I even took some notes. See how well organized I am? Not. Just to give you a basic idea of what you're in for, it's gonna be a bit of philosophy, a little bit of science, and I'm gonna try to address the relationship between the mind and the brain. So now that you know, you can stick around or go away. It's your free choice. Or is it? I cannot resist to start this discussion about the mind and the brain without first talking about a particular brain, belonging to a particular person, with a particularly brilliant mind, and that person is Albert Einstein. The autopsy on Einstein's body was done by a young pathologist named Thomas Stolz Harvey. Despite Einstein's specific instructions to be cremated, and despite the fact that Harvey was, like I said, a pathologist and not a brain specialist, he removed and took Einstein's brain, without any authorization and without the family's consent. He later on managed to get Einstein's son permission, but only under the condition that he will publish the study in a scientific journal, which Harvey never did. He photographed the brain, weighted it, and dissected it into about 170 pieces. He kept Einstein's brain for 43 years and published nothing. Finally, he surrendered some parts of the specimen to several specialists, and the remaining was returned to the University Medical Center in Princeton, and at last several studies were published. Einstein's brain was average in size, actually leaning more towards the small range, which immediately destroyed the myth that the size of the brain is directly related to intelligence. However, his brain was different in terms of anatomy. The inferior parietal lobe was 50% wider than in a normal brain. The parietal operculum, another brain region that is supposed to be near it, is missing entirely from Einstein's brain. Basically what happened was that a part of the brain grew bigger at the cost of another part of the brain, which in his case could not develop. Einstein's part of the brain that was 50% larger than normal is an area associated with things like mathematical thought and visual cognition. The area that is missing from his brain is supposed to play a role in speech functions. And on one hand, we do know about Einstein's skill in mathematical reasoning, and that he used the visual imagination to come up with his theories. For instance, he was imagining space-time as being curved. And on the other hand, we also know that he did have problems in speech functions. He started talking later than most kids. He used to repeat sentences again and again until he was like 9 or so. He also did poorly in subjects like languages and history, while he exceeded in mathematics and physics. Also, he said himself that he thinks visually rather than verbally. The point to all of this was to exemplify clearly what we already know from science, that particular parts of the brain are directly related to particular mental functions. However, there is still the claim that even if intelligence is dependent on the brain, our consciousness or self-awareness or soul, if you want to call it that, is not. In philosophy, this is called dualism, the belief that the mind, and again by mind they mean consciousness, is non-physical and distinct from the brain. And this, as you may know, can lead very easily to religious and spiritual beliefs that the soul can survive the death of the physical body and live on. The main problem with dualism is that if the mind is non-physical, then consciousness should not be affected by what's happening to the physical body. And it obviously is. That's why if you hit your head, you can lose consciousness. Or take the example of drugs, for instance, which are physical and you ingest them with your also physical body, and yet your consciousness is affected. In the case of hard drug dependency, even your personality can change, the way you think and even the way you feel. The amount of research and experiments showing the direct connection between brain and consciousness, in my opinion, leaves no room for dualism. In which case, if the mind and the brain are not separate entities, you can conclude that either both are physical or both are mental, that no physical stuff exists. Everything that you see and hear and touch, the people around you, the world around you, it's all in your mind. No matter at all. Now this particular view, it's called subjective idealism, and I'm not gonna get into it because I just find the idea silly. To be honest, it's just mental masturbation. I see no use for it. Now the opposite view is called materialism, and is the position I hold myself. The mental and the physical are one and the same, and they are both material. The mind is a product of the body. Our consciousness is the totality of our thinking as well as our feeling processes, both of them coming from the brain. The brain is material, therefore anything that it produces cannot possibly be immaterial. And this can also go in a couple slightly different directions. Personally, I am a reductive materialist. I believe that all mental phenomena, pain, anger, joy, all of them can be ultimately reduced to brain activities. Basically, psychology can be reduced to neurobiology. Mental states are reduced to brain states. In 1953, Francis Crick and James Watson made one of the most important scientific discoveries of all times, the molecular structure of DNA, for which they won a Nobel Prize. While Watson went on to work on the mapping of the human genome, physicist Francis Crick dedicated himself to neuroscience. Crick was a die-hard reductive materialist. This is what he says in his book The Astonishing Hypothesis, which is a great book by the way, and I'm gonna quote from my awesome notes here. Quote, "You, your joys and your sorrows, your memories and your ambitions, your sense of personal identity and free will, are in fact no more than the behavior of a vast assembly of nerve cells and their associated molecules." End quote. Now you know I can't make this video without going into the free will subject. I am also a determinist, and there are different branches of determinism as well. I won't get into them. Just for your information, I ascribe to causal determinism. I believe that all the events in the universe, and that includes human decisions and actions, are determined by prior events, which were determined by events before them, and so on in a chain of causes and effects that go back to the beginning of time. And the thing is, causal determinism doesn't leave much room for free will. Let's go into it a bit. Let's say that you are thirsty and you go inside a store and grab a bottle of Coke. Now, it seems and it feels like you had a range of options. Like, you could have chosen something else if you just wanted to. But on the other hand, if you look at the world in general, everything that happens has precise causes for happening. If you're watching the news and you hear about some village being flooded, you just don't think, "Oh look, another random flood with no explanation behind it." It's funny how those things occasionally happen. I hope tomorrow will be an interesting day as well. No, you know that there was a precise cause for that flood to happen. In this case, let's say that it was caused by tsunami, which was caused by a large displacement of water, which was caused by an earthquake, which was caused by some volcano activity, and so on. You can go back further and further in time to find the cause behind the cause behind the cause. And how about your decision to grab a bottle of Coke? Maybe that was the first thing on the shelf and you were in a hurry, or maybe you have a caffeine addiction, or maybe you just have a genetic predisposition to liking that particular taste. Either way, there was a cause for you making that decision. Not to mention that there was a cause for you going into that particular store. There was a cause for you being thirsty. There was a cause for you having enough money to buy a drink, and so on. If you could turn back the time but without having any recollection of anything, you would end up making the exact same choice again. Because all the circumstances that led to you making that choice would be exactly the same. So your will is not really free, but is dependent on all these factors that restrict your choice making. In the same sense, the flood would also happen again, because all the circumstances that made that flood happen would be exactly the same. Now there is a particular branch of physics, namely quantum mechanics, and some people interpret that as being able to argue against determinism and somehow prove free will. Because at atomic and subatomic level, particles seem to act randomly. If you start shooting 10,000 electrons at a screen with two slits, you cannot make definitive predictions about where each particle will end up. However, you can predict with high accuracy about what percentage of them, how many of those 10,000 particles, will end up in any given location. So the fact that individual particles seem to be unpredictable doesn't really influence the probabilities at a larger scale. In fact, the apparent randomness at subatomic level doesn't seem to have any influence on larger systems. For instance, the neurons. Personally, I don't think there is such thing as randomness in the universe. We just call random what to us seems unpredictable. But that only means that we can't make accurate predictions about those events. Not that the events are really random at their core. Maybe we just can't get all the relevant factors, all the variables. Maybe there is information at subatomic level that we just don't have access to, or not yet. And even if, for the sake of the argument, let's say that quantum events are truly indeterministic, the implication of free will from that, to me, looks desperate. The apparent random activities of electrons giving you free will, come on! This would at most make your decisions random, And randomness is not free will by any standards. I know people like the idea of free will, and I know we all feel that we have free will, but if you have to stretch things to that extent to defend a concept, then maybe the concept is just not worth defending. To wrap this up, I just want to mention Benjamin Libet's experiment done on the sequence of mental and physical events that take place when you are making a decision. For instance, the decision to move your hand. Now, what this research and others done later on showed was that your consciousness of willing comes almost half a second later than your readiness potential. This basically means that your brain is enabling your body to move your hand before you are even aware that you want to move your hand. You are making conscious decisions half a second later after you are already starting to act on them. Now, what does this say about free will? Don't be shy to give your thoughts in comments and video responses. Bye there.